Hello, this is PM Sports Talks. It's your host, Paul Ewing, and today we're going to be starting off our channel with doing a bit of a commentary over the Tennessee Titans, looking over where they are at this point in the season, what they have with the upcoming draft, and just what they've done during this offseason to put themselves in the situation that they're currently in. So, with that being said, I hope you enjoy, and let's just get into it. Also, this is a post-production thing, but I'm rocking the Titan blue. This is planned from the very start. This totally wasn't worn just because I had a theater event today. To get things started, I think it's best that we review what the Tennessee Titans did last season, and it wasn't pretty. They finished with a 3-14 record. It was really, really rough, and they did have some bright spots. A lot of it was really bad, really, really, really bad. But let's just kind of go over those multiple different things and see what got them to the point that they're at right now. Now, looking at some of the Titans' offensive struggles, it's definitely fair to point a lot of the issues at the offensive line, since you have guys like Nicholas Petit-Frere, who was starting at right tackle, who should really never be allowed to step on a football field ever again. You also had rookie J.C. Latham starting at left tackle. He played right tackle in college basically all of his years there, so it was pretty difficult for him to make the transition. And he started off strong, but then did really, really bad towards the end of the season. And I do think he'll improve based on some of the free agency moves that they made, which we will be discussing later on in this video. But on his own, Will Levis was not that good. They failed to move the ball around, and the wide receiver room was also really bad. They traded DeAndre Hopkins midway through the season, and that left them with Calvin Ridley, a washed Tyler Boyd, and Treylon Burks, which besides looking beautiful, Treylon Burks is not good. And I hope he can turn it around, but it's looking like that was definitely a really, really bad move that they made trading A.J. Brown. That'll continue to haunt them since Treylon Burks might not even make the roster this year. This year, the offense decided to move on from Ryan Tannehill and give Will Levis the helm, and let him attempt to steer the ship towards victory, but it more so ended up him steering it into the fiery pits of hell. The Titans' offense was absolutely pitiful, ranking 27th in points per game, 27th in yards per play, 27th in passing yards per game, and Will Levis had the 7th highest sack percentage in any quarterback of the league. They also had the worst team interception percentage in the league. Now, their defense did have some bright spots. I think that's the best thing that we should go over first. They had the third fewest yards per game allowed and third lowest yards per play allowed. They also had the least passing yards per game allowed throughout the entire league, so their secondary was really good. They also had the 5th lowest yards per pass allowed. However, they have some pretty bad other defensive statistics. They ranked 30th in points per game allowed at a 27.1 average. They're around middle of the pack in rushing yards allowed per game at 21st, and were 25th in red zone percentage, which are all not the best and could definitely be improved upon. But if you think that alone was bad, let's get over to the real glory hole, which is the offense. They also had another bright spot in Nick Westbrook-Akine. He led the team in touchdown passes, but because Tennessee is awful, he did not end up staying, and he ended up signing with Miami. So their second best receiver is currently gone, and they didn't do much to fix it, which they signed Van Jefferson, which is not good. He's not good at all. He had a few good moments in LA, but in his time at Atlanta and Pittsburgh, it just was completely mid. So one of the other issues that Tennessee's currently facing now, looking at their team, is pass rush. And they got worse than what they were during the season. Harold Landry, he led the team in sacks and he got released. Other changes within their secondary. Chidobe Awuzie, he was injured for most of the season, but when he played, he was pretty good. He also got released, so that was a pretty big hit to their secondary. I don't think they'll feel that Chidobe Awuzie hit as much, but it's still not the best direction to go in. They also lost some of their linebackers in Jack Kibbins. He was a pretty young player, and I think they are going to notice that. They also traded Kenneth Murray to the Cowboys, so their linebacking room is pretty badly depleted. Looking at their wide receiver room, we mentioned earlier that DeAndre Hopkins is gone. Tyler Boyd's a free agent. He could still be brought back. However, I don't see why they really would. Now, let's get into the most interesting, I'd say, part of their Tennessee Titans offseason, and it is signing Dan Moore to a multi-year contract with over $50 million guaranteed. I think that is absolutely absurd. Dan Moore, he led the league in sacks allowed, and to give him credit, the Pittsburgh Steelers, their schedule towards the end had some awful matchups for him, and he ended up allowing 12 sacks. 7 of them were from Myles Garrett and Trey Hendrickson combined, who are absolute monsters, and he faced them in the second half of the season, which would explain how bad his drop-off was. But still, 12 sacks for a lineman who has never been really good. He's only ever been mid, and he's gotten better, so you can hope that he's going to get better. And Brian Callahan does have Bill Callahan as the offensive line coach, and he's one of the greatest O-line coaches in history, so you really hope that they can improve off that. But no matter what, I still think, unless Dan Moore is excellent, that's going to be a really, really big overpay that they're going to feel later. They did make 2 other offseason moves that I just really want to quickly discuss about involving free agency. They ended up signing Kevin Zeitler, who is a really good guard. He played for Baltimore and Detroit the last 2 seasons, been super good and consistent. He is a bit older. They signed him to a 1-year deal. Them signing him does make me think that they will be drafting a QB in the offseason, but he is a very good 1-year bandage player who will probably retire after this season. And then they also signed Tim Boyle, who he's a bit of an anomaly. He's been, throughout college and the NFL, really, really bad. And people kind of just don't understand how he's gotten onto teams. My guess is he's a good locker room guy, but he's going to be fighting for a roster spot, so he's not too significant. It's just interesting to see that they did choose to sign him. And on the note of the Dan Moore signing, that does allow J.C. Latham to kick back to right tackle where he played at Alabama, which hopefully will get him to improve quite a bit. They made some other defensive additions. They signed Xavier Woods to play free safety. He's on the aging side, so you could expect a bit of a fall-off from him, but I think he'll be a good bandage player. They also signed Draymond Jones from the Seahawks. When the Seahawks signed him, that was really an overpay, and he didn't do much, but he's probably going to end up starting in their current state just because of how bad their pass rushing situation is. They also re-signed Sebastian Joseph Day. I think he'll definitely help with their run defense. And they also re-signed Darrell Baker. I think he's a good DB. I think he'll make up for the loss of Chidobe Awuzie. They also have Jarvis Brownlee. So I think he'll be fighting for that cornerback 3 spot. Now to kind of shift things into what most people probably really care about, and that's the draft. So as we mentioned before, the Tennessee Titans had a record of 3-14. They ended up having the worst record in the league, which is why they have the number 1 pick in this draft. And that gives them a few different options. When you're looking at the team needs, they have a lot. They could definitely use help at QB since they're starting Will Levis and he was not particularly good, even if the situation wasn't good. They need help at wide receiver. You could argue that they could still improve the offensive line with some aging guys on the interior and Peter Skoronski not fully giving you the most confidence that he can be your long-term guy. They need help at linebacker after all that they lost. They need help at edge. And they also could use help at safety with Amani Hooker not being the most consistent in terms of being healthy. And then also, again, Xavier Woods being an age DB. Those typically don't go too well. So I think we should look at the 3 actual plausible options, technically 4. The first one we'll discuss is drafting Travis Hunter number 1 overall. I think that this is the least likely version or option that they have. Typically just wide, even though he plays wide receiver and cornerback, I don't think it's that important of a position, even if he's a really good prospect for them to take him number 1 overall. They don't really have a need at corner, and Travis Hunter is projected to be a better corner, and that's what I think he will start at when he is drafted into the NFL, and then take a few snaps per game at wide receiver, which leads us to our second option, which is taking Abdul Carter first overall. I think that could happen. He's had some lingering foot injuries. He missed the combine, and he just missed Penn State's pro day. So I think that could affect his draft stock, but I don't see him falling past 5. Edge is a huge need, and we've seen edge rushers drafted number 1 overall, like with Trayvon Walker, but I still don't exactly see it happening just because of how bad the QB situation is for Tennessee and how they've addressed it so far, which is why I do think they will be drafting Cam Ward first overall. If you look at the Titans QB room, it's really bad. We mentioned earlier they signed Tim Boyle. They also have Brandon Allen, who they signed from the 49ers, who's also not good. And then they have Will Levis, who he has potential, and I think the situation for him definitely isn't good. I can see him thriving on another team like Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and Geno Smith did, but I don't think, and especially with how bad the Titans were last year, Brian Callahan is basically going to be playing this year for his job. And if the Titans don't get above, I'd say 7 wins or at least look competitive, he's going to get fired no matter what I think. So I do think the Titans will draft Cam Ward. They invested in the O-line. I still think they could address receiver in later rounds. But there is one other option that I think could happen. I don't think it will, and that's the Titans trading back. So looking at the current Titans situation, they have a round 1 pick, a 2 pick, and then they don't have a round 3 pick. They have that early 2nd round pick. The only teams that I could see trading up are Cleveland if they really, really want Cam Ward, and then New York. Cleveland has a ton of draft picks to play around with. New York doesn't have the most. I believe they have 8. But even so, if you have the chance to take your franchise QB, even in this being a weaker QB class, where I think Cam Ward probably would have been drafted after Bo Nix if this was last year's draft, I still think you have to take it. And again, considering where Brian Callahan is with his job security, I think you have to kind of go all in with what you can. And I don't think Abdul Carter is going to elevate the team the same way that Cam Ward would if you can make him work as a rookie. So that's the current Titans situation. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways they could do this. And it is still pretty early into the offseason. The draft isn't for another month. But I definitely appreciate you tuning in for this video. I'm just a high schooler trying to do sports broadcasting for a career, and hopefully this works out. I hope you take a chance to subscribe. We're going to try and make some more videos. I don't know how consistent this upload schedule will be since I'm pretty busy, but let's make this work. I hope you like and subscribe and leave a comment, and let me know your thoughts on what the Tennessee Titans should do in the comments below. So that's PM Sports Talks, and we're signing off. Thank you.